I was most recently a government meeting planner for NIH, and to tell you the truth, you guys, that job was very, very, very demanding. Very demanding for a mom.
Hello,
So I took a step.
my name is Melva Covington. I am the co-founder and managing director of People Empowering
Yeah.
People for Inclusion Now. We call that PEPIN. I, along with my co-founder, Tamara Allen, who is the Chief Visionary Marketing Officer, we're honored to welcome you to our Flash Talk series hosted by Ms. Mabel Hung. Pepin is a Chicago-based African-American female-owned research, recruitment, and technology firm focused on delivering high-tech and high-touch solutions for clinical research, focused on reducing.
And we're back, right?
Yes.
All right. So let me just pick up where I left off. I was a government meeting planner for NIH. That job was very demanding, so I took a step back and I decided to stay at home for a little while with my four children. So I've always been in service and working in service. So as I've been home, I've just been building of how I'm going to continue in service. And then I've just been working on my partnership here with Pepin, and I've just been diving into that. So that's got me really excited. A fun fact about me. What's a fun fact about me? You know, for once, I can't think of anything. You know what? I'll tell you a fun fact about me. When I was a teenager, I entered into a beauty pageant. I was Miss Teen Maryland, and I made the top 10. So I like to say that is a fun fact about me because we always talk about I will say for me, I always talk about a fun fact about my kid, but for once, that's a fun fact about me. So we're really excited for you guys all to be here, and I'm really excited to be here with you, Jasmine.
I love that pivot to making sure we're talking about you. I love it. So again, welcome everyone. So sorry for that glitch. All good. We're like ready to kind of jump into this thing. So today's session, this evening session, is going to be helpful tips for your baby's first year.
Mhm.
So whether you are a family member of someone who just had a child, you are pregnant yourself, or you are like in the throes of that first year, we
Mhm.
definitely hope that everything that we're sharing tonight will be helpful and useful to you. And we'll have a Q&A towards the end where you can give us some questions and we can dive a little deeper into the things that we're chatting about as well. So definitely make sure you're jotting those down as we are going through our tips. But as Deidre kind of alluded to, we are a part of Pepin Pulse. So we are Pepin ambassadors. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about what that means.
Well, yes, everyone, we are a part of Pepin. The Pepin ambassadors are an extension of Pepin, People Empowering People for Inclusion Now, which exists to promote inclusion and engagement with clinical research. To to promote inclusion, engagement, and clinical research. I apologize. Together with Pepin founders and advisors, we work with clinical research organizations, sponsors, healthcare providers, community based organizations, and people like you to ensure that all people, especially unrepresented communities, have access to health resources, information, and clinical research. The Pepin Pulse is about community driven engagement. We're here to share real, actionable insights and ways to access resources that empower individuals to make better choices for themselves and their families. So, what better way to begin than by talking about one of the most critical moments in a person's life, but the first year of parenthood? So, I'm excited because the first year of parenthood was it's a big one. It's a big one, right?
A little bit, a little bit. And as we were sort of preparing this event and kind of going through information to share, we both were like, yeah, we wish people were like telling us this some years ago when we were having kids. So we hope that you'll have that aha moment as well. So just like a quick overview of what to expect tonight, we just did some intros of our hosts and co-hosts. So we are also going to be sharing those actionable tips that we have, mentioned already. So hopefully you'll be taking some notes and kind of thinking through ways that you can incorporate that and adjust that to your life. Really just keeping balancing self-care and building support in mind. That is like the whole goal of all of this. How can we make this experience easier and more accommodating for you and your family? And then, as I mentioned before, at the end, we will have a live Q&A. So start jotting those questions down. And not to worry if you can't really think of anything. We'll definitely help you get started on some of those questions that you might be having that you just haven't figured out how to formulate just yet. And the last thing we want to reference is there will be a free downloadable list that you can print out, put on your phone, save as a screenshot so you can reference it every day, every week, whenever you need it. Post it in your office, post it around your home, so you can like really check in with yourself and really help yourself through this process of that first year of parenting. So to get us started, we are going to jump in. Okay. So those actionable parenting tips are exactly what we are all here for. And the first is be active. All right. So let me just say this. I know every time I talk about it, I'm like, I get taken back to what it was like to be in COVID. So my daughter was born February 2020, and the world shut down March 2020. So when I say I was stuck in the house, as we all were, for about a year. So being active was like the hardest thing to do in the recovery process. So my doctor's like sending suggestions for stuff, and I'm like, how am I supposed to do any of this? Kind of can't go outside. Not really sure what to do here. So I actually did some research on YouTube and I found a lady, her name is Grow with Joe. So I'm sure a lot of y'all probably know who she is. So she became like super popular during the pandemic, where she would literally do like walking miles and getting active and incorporating like better eating and working on your body through recovery from her living room, like literally in front of her couch. So I would like burn calories, and it was also helping me to just feel a lot better about myself as well. Because she'll do like a motivational kind of message at the end of the video, like you did that, girl. And it helped me to feel, I mean, like super empowered to like get up and do it again the next day. So that was kind of like my tip for getting active. Like you have to get creative. If you can't make it to the gym because you're nursing, okay, turn that TV on, turn that tablet on, and stream it somewhere and start working out. So what did you do to kind of help you to stay active in your first year?
So my first year in parenting to stay active, I was fairly young. I was a super young mom. So I had my first at 21. And as soon as I had her, about a couple months after, I went back to work and I was waitressing. So I was getting those steps in. Anybody that called out, I would tell my boss, like, don't close that section, seat that section. I'll take those tables. So I got those steps in for sure. And I was walking. Same thing with baby number two. I live on the East Coast. I was working in DC, living in Baltimore, and I had to catch the commuter train. So every day I had to walk to and from work, and my walk was about 3.5 blocks. So, and I did that the whole time I was pregnant. So that kept me active. And then, and then baby number three, I developed a game we called Chase the Baby. So baby number one and baby number two, we would get up and we would hide at first, and then we would tell her to run, and then we would chase the baby. So that's how I would stay active. Also, too, during the pandemic, you said you found with Joe, Fun with Joe, and I found morning stretches with Cassandra. She is amazing. So if you guys are into yoga or you're in the yoga world, I was a beginner. So Cassandra had 15-minute morning stretches. And after baby number three, I would do those stretches and it really got me active. And I was able to carry that into baby number four, especially since I also had a pandemic baby. He was towards the end, but we were still in the house. So
Right. For a very long time. which was great, right? We appreciate everyone wanting to keep us safe. But you're around a baby all day long and you don't really get that engagement, get that social opportunity. So I know I was definitely missing out on seeing other adults and talking to other adults as well. So our next tip is getting social and being social, even if you cannot physically get out of the house. So
Mhm.
again, I'm referencing COVID, but it could be because you're working. It could be because, you had a C-section and so you physically are not able to go outside and move around. So getting social for me looks like having those Zoom calls. Y'all remember the Zoom social hours that everybody was hosting?
Oh, yeah.
So I would do those often, and it would literally just look like bringing your favorite cocktail. You know, I mean, I didn't nurse that long, so I was able to do that at some point. So bring your favorite cocktail, and we would bring like games. We would kind of get creative. Do like a scavenger hunt. That was like one of the more fun activities. Come up with a list of stuff to go and like run around your house and find. So that was like really fun as well to kind of incorporate that. And then you kind of are sharing in the struggle a little bit
Yes.
with other parents, with other adults. And everyone was able to kind of enjoy themselves, have a good time, but you're doing it at your own pace. You're not going nowhere, you're not spending no money, so that was kind of really helpful for me. So for you, okay, you did this a couple of times, but like, what was that one, like, this is how I'm going to stay social as a parent, a busy parent at that?
I would say the best part for me was when I had baby number two. When I had baby number two, he, a girlfriend and I, she had her son and my son were like 10 months apart. So I had already had my older child, but that was perfectly fine. She was great. And then, but to stay social, like she and I lived only about a couple minutes away from each other. So we had weekly play dates. And then we were on Facebook a lot with like events, mainly free events, because we were both single moms at the time. So we were like, let's let's keep it in our budget. But we did a lot of events together. And then it's funny, I look back, I get memories that pop up of like, remember this day, and it's like all three of them and they were so little. But getting through that, and then that experience allowed me to kind of use that moving forward. So like as I've had more children, you know, that young lady, she moved away a little bit. So now I know. Now I'm like, okay, you got to get a friend that has a kid that's in the same age bracket as your kid. And then it's like once the kids get along, then you got to feel the parents out. Like how do I get along with these parents? But what I found is that if you find a family that's kind of on the same trajectory that you're on, as far as your parenting, how your kids interact, the things that your kids are into, that's how you stay social. And after as adults, as we get older, we realize we don't need a ton of friends. You just need like 3 or 4, maybe just one, honestly. And that's a good way to stay social. Because a lot of us maybe a little younger. When I was younger, I wasn't going out anymore. I was 21, so all my friends were out. They were out clubbing, they were out barring, but I was in the house. But that's okay. But that's how I stayed social, and I found that to be really comforting. Once you find that kind of pair family that has the same age kids and on the same trajectory that you are, that's a really good way to stay social and get your adult interaction while they're getting their kid interaction.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's almost like it takes the pressure out of having to like interview people.
Yeah,
Making adult friends is a little hard. Like your
Lord.
kid actually makes it really easy because
Hmm.
it's like they really enjoy being around that other child. It kind of
Yes,
helps you to get excited about getting them together. And then that relationship kind of builds and hopefully is like an organic process for you.
it is.
um, yeah, but I know just one thing that you were kind of mentioning too is like not really forcing the process, but also being conscious and mindful of like what you can and can't control. So I know the next tip that we're obviously going to be talking about is like setting super realistic expectations and being okay with like things not going how you expect. you
There you go.
maybe not liking the parent that your child loves. Or, you having some difficulties like processing what this experience looks like for you. I know for me, it was a huge adjustment because me and my husband were married for what, maybe 5 years at that point, and it was just he and I, right?
Wow.
So like that's a long time for it to like not be a whole nother person there.
Mhm.
But one thing that my therapist shared with me that like keeps me is like you are learning your child just as much as you are learning yourself as a
Mhm.
parent. So this idea that like I'm supposed to know what to do, I should know what to say, I should know what things to buy is crazy.
Mhm.
I don't care how many books that you read, you really aren't that prepared until your child gets here and helps you to actually understand how to parent them. So that's been like one of the biggest lessons for me is like pacing myself and
Mhm.
being realistic about what to expect and like showing myself, my body, my mind, my spirit, like grace, for the process because we are still learning and figuring it out. I have a 5-year-old, but I am still actively learning her and figuring her out. So like I
Absolutely.
know, yeah, right? Like what adjustments did you have to make and just being conscious and mindful of your expectations.
My expectations, this topic for me kind of touches more on me when it gets to like the school age. I say that because I have really, really, really I have amazingly structured sister-in-laws. Like they're so structured. They have everything in order and like this and that. And like I would go to my brother and their wives' houses and I would be like, huh, that's a that's a really good idea. And then sometimes they would sit down and ask me to like I know my one sister-in-law, she would be like, as my oldest was getting older, she would be like, so what schools are you looking into for like high school? And I was like, she's in the 5th grade. Like, why are we talking about that right now? And she'd be like, well, you got to get on this now. Like, you got to get, and I would be like, then I would go home and like panic and be like, why didn't I, 5th grade? Why am I thinking about high school? But I quickly calmed myself down because I realized like what works for her in her house. She's an amazing mom, but work was working for her and everything that she was looking at, that wasn't my reality. That wasn't what I was looking into. That wasn't where my life was. Again, my experience was different. Like she had my brother. My brother's an amazing dad. Um, my kids have an amazing dad, but at the time he wasn't living with me. So it was just me. So I would just say, new moms, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. If your baby's not rolling over at this time, or you pushed for 30 extra minutes than Sally, like please give yourself grace. Everybody's experience is different. So just keep that in mind and don't put so much pressure on yourself. Please just don't. So I would say that with the expectation.
No, I love that because that comparison thing that we do, like,
Mm-hmm.
why isn't my child speaking yet? Why aren't they walking yet? It will really take away from special moments with
Yeah.
your kid. And again, really learning them and like being totally okay with how things are paced, in your life and in your experience, which leads me to, oh my goodness, the next one, which is being so respectful of those pockets
Mm.
because my God, we cannot do all the things that everybody's doing.
No. And
We
the money just
have, you know what I'm saying? And so being really conscious of how you're using your money. So
flies.
for me, like one of the smartest things I could have possibly done, and a lot of women do this, was have a baby shower. Okay. So that I can be thoughtful and mindful of like really having the help from my community because let's be real, diapers are not expensive and they are going up little by little every year. And so one of the things that I did actually after my daughter was born, I would go back to the registry and I would say like, okay, so we didn't use this, we didn't use this, and a lot of that stuff was from Target. Y'all, I took this stuff back and like got a gift card to put it towards something else. You know what I'm saying? That was like one thing
Yes.
that I did. And another thing, I kept inventory of like what I still needed. So if I have 4 boxes of diapers in size 1, but I'm like, man, she's in the size 1 for a real long time. Like it almost helped me like have a checks and balance on like what I still needed. So that kind of kept me from overspending a little bit. Cause if I ever sat and thought about like all the things I wanted her to have, I mean, I would be broke. I think we all would be broke. But I think, yeah, having that accountability, whether that's a partner or a family member, or again, referencing that registry or a checklist to say, like, what's still needed and what can I sort of do without even buying, like, entirely. Like, for you, like, your process, I'm sure changed, right, with every kid, but like, what was like a good strategy for you?
So a great, amazing strategy for me, and this came with baby number 2, because the shower for baby number 1 was like a whole parade on the main street of the, you ever been to Magic Kingdom? It was like that parade. It just kept coming for baby number 1. Baby number 2 and 3 didn't get as much, and 4 didn't get as much love. So I discovered Facebook Market. Facebook Market, ladies, dads. You feel like you're not helping out enough, get on Facebook Market. Find some stuff for the baby. Find some stuff for mom. Find some stuff for mom. The baby's getting showered all the time. Find some things on there for mom. But either way, I found a brand new baby bullet. The woman never even touched it. Brand new. She sold it to me for like $15. And then thrift store. Because you talked about it, Jasmine. You talked about how there were items that you didn't even use. You took them back to Target. Same thing at the thrift store. All those baby clothes, I lied to you not, 70% of them still had the tags on them. The baby never even touched them. So baby number 2, baby number 3, they all received brand new clothes. They were just from the thrift store. And they were like 50 cents an outfit. And then if those of you moms out there who are like me, who sometimes need a little shop therapy to pick you up, you can shop therapy at that thrift store and not break your pockets. Same thing with Facebook Market. I got baby number 4's crib off of Facebook Market for $60. Retail price, that crib was $200. So that is an amazing way to respect your pockets and get a fix for your shop therapy at the same time.
I love it. I feel like that is a form of rewarding yourself,
It
right?
is.
Like
Yeah.
just like the stress of not being in debt sounds incredibly rewarding. Which is obviously our next tip, which might be one of my favorites, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Reward yourself. And not just like with monetary things. That doesn't have to look like, showering yourself with gifts and whatever you enjoy. But for me, it was like decompressing and
Mm-hmm.
like unplugging.
Yes.
So I would go in the bathroom. I would turn all the lights out, like literally turn them all out, and just fill the room with like just candles. And I would put on like, whatever music I wanted to listen to. I'd pull out like a really good book I wanted to read. Or if there were times where I'm like, because podcasts, like the ones where you can like watch, just like always weird to say, but the visual podcasts were a thing during the pandemic. So like I would like just have those on, whether it was headphones or just like out loud and just like be in my space to the point where I would look up sometimes and I've been in the tub for like an hour because I am just like really allowing the water, the peace, the tranquility to just like help me to reset. And another additional thing that I did, it
Mm-hmm.
was actually still cold outside, but I enjoyed it. It was very cathartic to me. I would like crack the window
Yes.
and like let the sound of like the air and just everything that was happening outside just like infiltrate the space a little bit, and
Yes.
that was really calming too. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what, beyond rewarding myself, I asked to have that time. Don't disturb me. Don't come knocking at this door. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need this time. And seriously, when I say I got up, got myself together, and I felt better, I
Mm-hmm.
looked better, I processed better, I was calmer, and I was ready to get through the night or day, whenever I kind of took the bath. But that was like my thing. That's how I rewarded myself often as a mom. Like, what about you? What did you do?
Okay, so I have two different things. One, as you can see, I talk with my hands a lot. I love to get my nails done. It is like my own little euphoria. It's just like, oh. And then sometimes, even when I'm having a bad day, I'll just look at my nails and be like, oh, girl, these look good. It just lifts me up. That was one thing. And then I'll get my pedicures because that's always nice too. And then in that moment, when I go to the nail salon, I'm not by myself. I actually get to take my oldest daughter with me. She's 17, like I mentioned, and like that's kind of our time. So that's another way to reward myself. But the other way that I reward myself is, I don't know if you can tell, Jasmine, but I'm kind of an extrovert. I love to talk. I love people. So I have a podcast. It's called Breaking Barriers. And one way I love, love, love to reward myself is going to talk to people. Like I get fed off of talking to people, all different lives, where they come from, no matter where they come from, it doesn't matter. I love talking to people. I love getting their stories. And I just love it how at the end of the day, I always see that at the end of that conversation, there was something that that person and I actually have in common. And it just reminds me of how we're all so connected. So those are the two things that really, really, really reward me. And you're right. It took me a minute to have to be able to tell people or even tell myself, like, you can do this for yourself. You don't, and it's okay to say, hey, can you please take these kids so I can go to the nail salon, please? Because it's like this, the little things and the self-care and things like that. And then even talking to people, those of
Yep.
us who are a little more shy, they might be thinking like, that is a nightmare for me. But for me, it's like, oh, goody, 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 goody.
Mhm.
So that's what I like to do to
I
reward
love it. I mean, because the focus should be you, right? Like, I always think of that story. With the stewardess, like when you take a flight somewhere,
Yes,
and they always say, put on your mask
yes.
before you assist somebody else. I think there's a reason that they say that. Because you're kind of no good, right? If you are
Mhm.
like worn out and torn down. So it's kind of also important to just take that time to like do things that like really make you happy and like really make you smile, right? So you can feel good to do the stuff that you got to do for everybody else. So speaking of doing stuff for everybody else, our kids never see this, but I feel like they will appreciate it one day when they have children and they understand the struggle that we go to limit the doggone clutter in our homes, in our apartments, our studios, however we are residing. That was like interesting for me. I kind of would take it in phases. So I
Mhm.
would wait for my daughter to kind of be a certain age where I'm kind of learning, her development. And I'm like, oh, she kind of done with this play mat. Wrap that up, put it in a box. We taking it out to the Goodwill, or we're giving that away to somebody. And during the pandemic, I don't know if this was like happening everywhere, but one thing that I loved about our Goodwill is that they had like a drive up service. So you could, pack up your car with all of the goods, gently used goods that you had, and you could just drive right in front of the Goodwill and drop your bag in like a little bin. Everybody masked up, gloved up, and you could still be safe and get rid of your stuff. And they still do that to this day. So it's always easy for me to just not have to worry about running in, getting a receipt, doing all the extra. People really help to accommodate you so you didn't have to feel overburdened with like physically having to drop it off anywhere. So that's one thing I did, just kind of pace out her development. What is she done with? What do we no longer need? And let's get it out the house and let's make room for the stuff that she will need. Which also kind of brings me to another thing that we kind of did. We didn't open anything that she didn't use yet. So if it was like a one of those little bouncies that they needed at what maybe like 11 or 12 months, I didn't open it. I didn't open it until she needed it. And then when she did, obviously, taking the time not to get it sorted out for her. But for you, like, did that change at all? Did you kind of have a rotation of getting rid of your clutter? Like, what did that look like?
Limit the clutter. I used to overwhelm me, but as I had more and more children, I realized they actually grow out of it. So they actually grow out of it. And then, so what I would do is like, I would pick up two different, like they would have like three or four bears of the same toy or things like that. And then I would say, okay. And I would tickle them with the bear. And I would be like, which bear do you love more? And they would squeeze one bear. And I would be like, is it okay? I'll be like, this bear is really lonely. Can we give it to another baby so that they can hug it and squeeze it? Because you really seem to love and squeeze this one. And I would turn it into a game, and then it would get them to see that they could get rid of things like that. So, or I would pretend we were at the store, and I would put everything. I had a little baby shopping cart. And I would say, put everything in the cart. And I would say, well, we can't leave with all this stuff. If you could take two things home with you, which two things would you choose? And they would go through and they would say these two things. And I would be like, wow, you think we could give this to another kid or things like that? And I would do that. And that's how I would limit the clutter. We talked about giving ourselves the grace. I just remember, you guys, from 0 to 5, sometimes embrace a little bit of the clutter, because you're going to clean that room and they're going to come in it and they're going to mess it up. So, but to limit the clutter and to get rid of things, that's what I would do. I would make it into a game and make them feel like they can only have one because another child needs it. So
like they make the decision. I feel like you should teach a course on this. I feel like this is a whole entire topic in itself. Because I love it, like empowering them to make the decision for you, basically. Like, how are you going to help me to get rid of this stuff? I really, really love that. So we've kind of referenced this a couple of times already, but like how we are using other people around us to whether that's getting rid of the clutter that we have, or we have like a specific question that we want to ask about like our experience. Like calling on my village has been helpful in so many different ways. And it wasn't always like easy because again, like physically, like people didn't come over, right? Because, they wanted to keep you safe, wanted to keep the baby safe and things like that. But when we were able to be with each other, it was actually the sweetest thing in the world. So my parents would come over, they would have their masks on and literally just like stand in the hallway. Like they would like stand in the hallway just to like see her, see what she's doing. And that like, number one, that brought us like a lot of joy, but it also just like reminded you that you're like not alone. I am one of 6 children. Okay. So my mother has like been through this thing. And for her, while that was super gratifying, it was also like a comfort for me, knowing that like I can call on her and she just gonna pull up in front of the house to just come and say hi to the kid, and whether that's giving her things or whatever the case might have been, just having that nucleus of people around you that you can call on, even for just stimulation. That was so big for me because I was like confined to an apartment in the South Loop and we had nowhere to go. But like having that community where I can like physically see people was like so incredibly helpful for my heart and like for my experience. And we also had these super random moments with like strangers, which I thought was a fake community for a really long time. During the pandemic, I don't know if y'all remember this, but like we would stand out on our balcony and we would have like these light shows with flashlights and people would just be out like playing their music and, kind of waving their flashlights around to just kind of say like, I'm here, and I don't know, it created like a sense of being a part of something, even though I don't know these people. But it was helpful for my heart. Anyway, it was helpful for my heart. what about you? Like, how do you create your network and your people?
Well, I was the queen of Call on My Village at 21 with a baby. So I was a queen. So, um, like I mentioned, I started my motherhood journey as a single mom. I, like I said, their dad and I have 4 kids, and he's their dad. And we were young, so we kind of had some hiccups. So I was one of those, like, whatever, I ain't got time for this, I don't need you. Like, I'm taking my baby and I'm going. But I had to call on my mom, call on my grandma. My grandmother, oh my gosh, I'm a grandma's baby. She watched my first child while I worked. So I worked the 3 to 11 shift. I was working in a hotel, so I would spend all morning with her, and then I would drop her off to my grandmother, and then my mom would pick her up. And and then even recently I was on my own with all 4, and I actually had a friend of mine that I didn't even know. They lived like 6 minutes away, and while I was running back and forth with these government meetings, I would call them and be like, I'm so sorry, I'm stuck on 495 in traffic, like, I need you to go get the kids, grab them, kick them off to my mom, and then things like that. So I love my village, and I thank them immensely all the time. And even with their dad being back with us and things like that, it's so interesting because I've been able to show him, because I don't know if he grew up with that. I don't know if he had that. And I remember one day he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be late picking up the kids," and I was like, "Well, I just called so and so," and he was like, "You gonna do what?" Like, so. And I said, yes, it's a village. It's a village. You need these people, get to know them. So again, it was just one of those things. I definitely have had an amazing village throughout my 17 years of parenting. And I definitely encourage you guys all, like, we have different cultures, we have different backgrounds, and also learn from your village. I had different families in my neighborhood growing up. I had an Indian family. I had an Asian family. I had a Greek family in my neighborhood growing up, and I learned so much. I learned a lot of different things from each one of those families. And even as I've been raising children and things like that, when I was living in Virginia, I lived next to a military wife, and I would be sitting in the house and she would just come on in and be like, "You've been on that couch for 4 days. Let's go. We're going to go do something." So your village is so important. And not only picks your kids up, it picks you up. So
I love that. That's a t-shirt slogan right there. So you guys,
write that down.
like, we could really talk forever, I think. We are almost done with our tips. We have 2 more, and then we will have a live Q&A, which we are so excited about. So as we are speaking through, right, our village and creating a village and creating opportunities to feel included, but also to have people to lean on, you need some systems in place as well. So creating some systems and some routines. So for me, I had so many reminders on my phone. Oh my God. My phone was gone off probably every hour. It was like, okay, bottle feeding, pump, change diaper, wipe down, read, like mat time. Like, I would literally have to map everything out because my brain was still getting back to normal.
Yes.
But that was like one thing that I like, it was a saving grace for me. Having my phone or like a tablet or like a calendar that would sync to like all of the places that I use my electronics. So I would get like constant alerts on what I needed to do. So, like, quickly, girl, what did you do to help to kind of keep systems and routines working for your family?
Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm keep it honest. I did not become a system routine mom until I had a boy. So I didn't become a system routine mom until I had baby number 2, because I had girl, boy, girl, boy. So I learned with my boy, with boys, just like our husbands and our boyfriends, ladies, they are routine. They need a system. They have to have their Cheerios in the morning. They have to have their Coke for lunch. Because Lord help us, same thing with your sons. I could just go out on the town with baby number 1. She would just fall asleep anywhere. She didn't care. Baby number 2, He had to have his scheduled nap time and be in his crib with the light off, with the dinosaur lamp, all of that. So that's how I created systems. But my baby number 2 was my teacher about keeping a routine. So once I had him, I had a schedule. And because boys, when they're hungry and they're sleepy, they also break down chemically. So if you're going to have a little boy and he's coming, just understand when he's hungry, he's sleepy, there's no negotiating with him. Just throw a snack in his mouth and put him on your shoulder. Okay. Because that's how they work. So that's what I did. And I will stop there so we can get to plans for the future.
That is so real. So I'm gonna wrap us up real quick, and then we gotta get to this live Q&A because I'm excited for these questions. So planning for the future, we've kind of referenced a lot of these things already. But if you plan to have more children, I know you've already mentioned like Facebook Marketplace. So instead of buying new stuff, y'all, let's figure out how we can be economic in our thinking and in our spending. Another really great tip that I have learned over the years as well is like investing in pieces that are modifiable and that adjust over time. So if you're buying like a crib, the crib should go into the twin bed, and then it should go into a playpen or what have you. So having like the modifiable furniture. I know another really great piece are like the strollers. So I just invested in one of those double strollers. So the one that have the car seat, but then your toddler can stand in the back, and then you can also put the baby on with the car seat. So even just things like that, so you are mindful of what you're going to need. But like you, Deidre,
What did
top
I
tip.
do?
What did you do?
Plan for the future. I believe you mentioned it about neutral colors. Neutral colors.
That's a good one.
So I planned hard when I had baby number 1, the car seat and the pack and play that I chose for her. I already had it in my head I was going to have another kid. So I chose a pattern for the car seat and the pack and play that could be for a boy or a girl. And I did little things like that, like just neutral colors. And one thing that I love, I will say this: invest in a really, really good high chair, because car seats, I believe, have expiration dates. But if you invest in a really, really good high chair and pack and plays as well. But I have had one high chair for all 4 of my children. And I've had one umbrella stroller for all 4 of my children. So I spent a little bit of extra money on the high chair, and I spent a little bit of extra money on the umbrella stroller. So if you'd like to know, I bought a Chico high chair. Actually, their dad bought it. And then we bought a McLaren stroller. And again, actually their dad bought that too. But but I just remember how it was an umbrella stroller, and I was like, it's so expensive. I remember when we were at Bye Bye Baby and we got to the register, and I was like, why is that thing so expensive? And I was like, what is going on? And it's so funny because now when we pull out the stroller for baby number 4, he's like, remember all the crap you gave me about how much money we spent on that stroller? He's like, all 4 kids.
That's a smart man right there.
It is. And as you can see, we're not young and emotionally testy anymore. So we get along so much better now.
I love that. So like, I don't know if you've been in the chat, but the chat has been blowing up. So
Okay.
thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
So we are going to start our chat. So if you go to your comment section on the screen,
Yes.
we want you to put some questions in here, okay? We want to hear, what are your thoughts? What did you need to hear to like really help you to like navigate in this space? Okay. Even if you're not a parent, you're a sibling and you're here to like support someone who you love and who you care about, and you're curious as to like how to support them in navigating, we want to hear from you too. All right. So we'll give it about a minute if you want to start putting your ideas in there, and then Deidre and I will go tag team. We'll kind of answer them as we go along. All right. So we'll give y'all a sec.
We have a lot of fun little comments that have been in the chat.
I know.
Miss Veronica said it's so much harder to make friends as a first-time mom over 40. Well, Veronica, where do you live? Because we'll be your friends.
Yes, we listen, it don't matter where you are, okay?
It
We
doesn't.
can set up a virtual social hour so quick. So if that is a need, can we please get this as a need in the chat so we can get this set up for the future? I think that would be super, super awesome. All right.
Hmm.
So we're not seeing any questions yet, but that is all cool.
It is. It is.
So, one of the questions that we do have kind of queued up for you guys is how can parents effectively build a strong support network? I know we kind of touched on this. You had some really great examples. So, do you want to take this one?
Sure. How can parents effectively build a strong support? So it's one of those things where like I said, some of us can be nervous, and even going back to Veronica saying that she said it was harder to make friends with the 40. It's one of those things. Luckily, we're now in this social media is everywhere. So there's so many groups to join. And then on top of that, I remember when I had moved out of Baltimore and I was living in a suburb of Maryland, um, I reached out to the school. I reached out to the school because I needed help with pickup for my first two kids because I couldn't get out of DC in time to get them from school. So I emailed the school and I said, hey, could you guys send out a blast email and let me know if there's any parents who actually live near me who'll be willing to do a carpool? And the school did it. And then I found an amazing young woman who said she was having issues getting her son to school. So I was like, no problem. I can get them to school if you can pick them up. And we did that. And it worked out perfectly. Her son was like the same age as my older daughter. And then baby number 2 was just a baby. And not only did I took them to school, but then she not only picked the older 2 kids up from school, but then she picked the baby up from daycare because the daycare was literally like 2 blocks away from the school. And she drove them all home for me. So you guys do not, or don't
Yeah.
be, there we go. Don't be shy at all about saying, I need some help. I need,
Hmm.
just like how, Jasmine, you mentioned it earlier. You were like, oh, my therapist said this. Remember how we were all kind of timid and be like, oh, yeah, I had to go to my therapist. And now we're all like, I love my therapist. So same thing. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to tell people what you need because no one will know. No one will know
Yeah.
anything. And that's really how you build your support network. You open yourself
Mhm.
up a little bit. It may not catch the first couple times, but don't give up. And then you never know, you'll run into a parent who's going through the exact same thing. And then
Mhm.
you guys click and it goes from there.
I was just gonna say that, like, it kind of matters that you make yourself available to, be outside, like, be kind of present, go to the little play dates, join the groups that Deidre was kind of mentioning. They're all over Facebook, they're all over TikTok. You can kind of find them anywhere. Um, Go to a park, go to a park where, it's like kind of located close to a school. That's like another really great way to meet other parents. Even if your child isn't school age, I can guarantee they got a little one your age. I can guarantee it. So that's like another really cool way to kind of access that. All right, any other questions? How can parents be better advocates for their own health and their child's health? I love this so much. So, we had a very interesting experience for my little one. She's allergic to peanuts, and y'all, when I say I tried everything. I was like, I'm gonna give them all of the things so she won't have an allergy, so she won't be allergic. She'll test this, she'll try that. Um, and she would have like peanuts and smoothies, or I would mix it in like yogurt, and she would have a reaction to it. She would like actually vomit it up. And I had absolutely no clue like what to do about that. But I would meet these parents, you know, and kind of mention this happening. I didn't know that was anaphylaxis either. So I mentioned this to one of the parents, and they were like, "Hey, so did you know that there was a response that was to it, like an allergic reaction?" And I was like, "Oh my God, seriously?" She recommended me to one of the top pediatric facility, Lurie's Children's Hospital, in Chicago. And when I say like we have learned so much about her health, like ask questions, but also have tough conversations. Just giving kids Tylenol and saying going to bed, uh-uh. Really put yourself out there so you can get the help that you need, because you don't want to be in a situation where it becomes dangerous or scary.
Right.
So for you, like, have you had any experience navigating that?
Actually, I did. Remember, I told you about the young lady who she and I were really close friends when we had our boys, and we would have
Mm-hmm.
weekly play dates, everything. Her son was allergic to so many things. He was allergic to eggs. He was allergic to apples. He was allergic to peanuts. Um, and I thought there was one more thing. There was another, I think, either way, there was one more thing, but I can't remember what it was. But she had to educate me on it because I had him a lot. But then we always definitely made him, like we wrote him a little list. You know, he was a little kid, so we gave him a list with pictures. So we gave him a picture of an apple. We gave him a picture of a peanut. You know, we gave him a picture of eggs. And I was remember, you can't eat these things. So if you're ever out somewhere and somebody trying to get you a snack, just look at your pictures and be like, I cannot eat this. But that was where I had to deal with it. And then I had a little cousin. He's allergic to literally almost everything. Literally almost everything. So I would say for that, and then like for my own kid, baby number 3 had she's the only kid that I have that she has allergies, and she also gets eczema really bad. So I just remember taking her to the specialist, and the first thing that she told me was, she said, "Do you have a cat?" I said, "Yeah, I do have a cat." She's like, "Your kid's allergic to cats." So she's like, "I'm just letting you know that needs to be okay." And then I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? I had a cat. They go to my mom's house every day. My mom had 3 cats at the time. So I was like, oh, this is a problem. However, oddly enough, the cats that my mom have are Maine Coons, which are oddly enough pretty, it's weird because they, some of them don't shed, like their hair kind of just clumps up on them, kind of like if you've ever shaved a sheep, it kind of clumps up like that. So because she was around them such at an early age, it's almost like she built a tolerance for my mom's cats. And then that kind of helped. And then also just making sure we took care of her skin and little things like that. Because even now, when she gets in contact with certain things, she'll break out immediately. But I just always make her aware, even though she's 7 now. But even when she was little, I'll be like, no, 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 you can't do that. And I would also tell her, like, this is what you have to do so you can tell other people that you can't do these things.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they do that for allergies. There's like a band you can get, a little necklace that you can get. But a lot of our communities are offering free services. I know in Illinois, there are now free doula services. So if you just get online, go to
mm,
your local, you know, alderman or your mayor or whoever's office and say, like, hey, I would love some resources on X, Y, and Z. I can guarantee they'll have a plethora of things for you all to do. I think we have something in the chat. Veronica, my daughter just turned 3, so I am still learning. I only
I'm
have
not 3,
one
I'm
other
5.
friend. Yes, my baby is 5. I only have one other friend who is around my age with a young child. Thought I would join this webinar to learn more. I can never get enough advice. I love that. Oh my goodness. I'm like blushing a little bit.
we're
Thank you
happy
so
to have you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get it. Like, we totally get it. Because even like when we have kids, like I think I had kids and they were all the same age as one of my friends. And then I had number 4, which took me out of like the social group. So I understand completely. And Veronica, we were telling you earlier, I put it in the chat. I said, we'll be your friends. We'll be your friends. We don't know where you live, but as you can see, we can get together. We can have a social hour.
Absolutely. Deidre and I are not in the same place, like FYI, just putting it out there in case anyone was curious. Anywho, we are almost at time. And I have a toddler who is so excited to engage with me soon. But anyway, thank you all so much for obviously being here. We are so grateful. We are so appreciative. But yeah, I want to pass it over to Deidre to close us out with some remarks about Pepin.
Absolutely. Look, you guys, I always say I'm not perfect. So, all righty. There we go. Okay. So again, we thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, Jasmine. I lost my place. Oh, here we go. I do apologize, everybody. I had a little script. I wanted to get it right. So thank you all for joining us. This was our first ever Pep Pulse event, and it was so amazing doing it with you, Jasmine. I can't wait till we get to do so much more. I hope you ladies or gentlemen, whoever is in our group here, that you found these tips helpful and valuable and that you enjoyed our conversation. We are going to have the checklist. It is going to be available tomorrow to download on the Pepin site. So again, if you want to sign up to join, there you go. It's dropped in the chat. You guys can go there to that link. And then tomorrow, that's where the parenting checklist that we just went over tonight will be. And then also, too, we encourage you to sign up to join the Pepin Pulse Ambassador team and stay connected with us for future events, discussions, blog posts, resources, and community engagement opportunities. Follow us at We Are Pepin on IG, YouTube, Facebook, and by visiting the Pepin website, which again was posted in the chat. We're also building the Pepin network, so be sure to join the list to be the first to be invited to join. Okay, so that's what we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for you guys joining us and bearing with our kid interruptions. I had to get up and let the dog out. Jasmine got the baby behind her. Motherhood is real, y'all.
It's real. It's so real. It doesn't stop. How about that? Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes. Bye-bye.